We spend far too much time worried about what makes us different than the next person or better than the next person, and not enough time thinking about why we should respect the next person. We all have a story, an overarching theme that runs through our lives and makes us who we are. The problem is, we think that since each of our stories is different, there's not a lot of perceived value and shared struggle. But we have far more in common than we can imagine, and what motivates one person can certainly help us as well. The Third Lap podcast is about understanding, respecting, and appreciating the struggle that it takes to overcome immeasurable odds in order to reach your destiny. Join me as I interview and bond with some of the most inspiring and incredible people, diving into their why to get a full understanding of their being. Without each other, we have nothing. So let's go on this adventure together and take on the future with open minds and open hearts. Welcome to the Third Lap podcast. What's going on, everybody? Today, I have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Teddye Gandy. Really excited about this one. This is going to be a dope opportunity for us to learn from an up-and-coming entrepreneur. And really just a cool brother, man, down-to-earth dude. We had a chance to connect. We'll get into how we know each other in a second. But Teddye, how's your day going, man? How's everything?
Hey, brother. Good to be here, man. I'm blessed, bro. Everything's going great.
Teddye is a husband, a father, but also the founder and creator of Blacts Apparel. And so we're going to get into exactly what that is and how you came to this point where you are in your current career.
You know, those first two titles mean more than anything else to me. Been married to my wife, Mariah, for 4 years, going on 5 next year. My firstborn, Teddye, a girl, is coming up on 3 months old. And
Right.
So 2020 has been crazy, man.
Yeah.
Blacts is doing very well. That's in its infancy as well. We pretty much became incorporated late in September, so we're a budding business.
Yeah. Same with the podcast. So my wife and I, we've been together now almost 5.5 years. And the same with the podcast. Like, I created the LLC. It got approved in late October, so it's official. A lot of people are saying, don't worry about making it an LLC. And I was like, nah, I don't want to have to, like, I'm doing it the right way. I went to business school, so I know better. And so I'm gonna do it the right way, and I'm gonna make sure that it's official. So, when this does blow up, man, I don't have to then backpedal and do a bunch of work. The work was done up front when it was in its infancy stage. First, I have to say shout outs to Hattress, who made this introduction. So if when you listen to this episode, appreciate you, brother. Had actually sent me your name and somebody else that he wanted me to connect with. And it was funny because when I reached out to you, we got a chance to talk on the phone, and he was like, hey, man, anybody that's a brother at Hattress is a brother of mine. And I knew it was going to be popping from them because I was like, well, I feel the same way. Like, Hat's my brother. So, anybody rocking with Hat, clearly I'm going to rock with him too. So, yeah, anything about how we were introduced to each other?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, any friend of Hattress, you don't have to run a background check on, man. That's how I feel. I don't get the Carfax for people who are friends with Hat. But yeah, Hat's a good dude. We've been friends for man, over 10 years now. We met back in college. And kind of went through those growing pains, as you know. And iron sharpens iron, especially when it comes to being a creative, which I just realized that I am. Go figure. So he's been helping me, through those kind of struggles since he's been kind of in the trenches for a couple of years. So yeah, shout outs to Hat.
Yeah, for sure. And he had put his book out too.
Yeah.
Big time creative, man. Dude that he is a creative. And so, Teddye, where are you from? This year rep your hood section. So what hood you repping?
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up in Gwinnett County, Georgia, north side for some people. I currently live in Macon, Georgia. Been here for about 5 years, which is just outside Atlanta, maybe an hour 15 commute. I'm actually a up north baby, man. I was born in Indiana, but life takes you some funny places, so Georgia's home.
Yeah, shout outs to Georgia. My mom, her father's side of the family is from Georgia. They're from Waynesboro and Augusta. So I've
Mhm.
spent a lot of time Waynesboro, Augusta. Not as much time in Atlanta. I need to. My wife, her cousin lives out in Atlanta. I have tons of friends that live out in Atlanta. A family member that's gonna probably relocate here soon. So once the pandemic is over, I'm gonna definitely shoot down there. Once I get out there, man, we're gonna definitely connect in person, bro. Because I like to connect with as many people as I can that I know are out here doing the right thing, and living righteously. And I can say for sure, just through our brief connections, you out here really repping it for real. And so shout outs to Atlanta, shout outs to Macon, shout outs to Indiana. That
Mhm.
may be the only time I say that on this podcast. I don't I don't know too many people from Indiana, man. But shout outs to Indiana. It's definitely some real ones out in Indiana too. And so, Teddye, I really want to go ahead and kind of dive into
Mhm.
like the bulk of this podcast, which is really about you. This podcast is a chance for me to talk to, interview, connect with just some of the dopest people that I've been able to meet in life. And, I definitely put you in that category. So talk
Thank
to
you.
us, man. How did your career start? Like before we even dive into Blacts Apparel, how did you even get to where you are right now? Where did your pathway start?
Oddly, somewhere in a land far, far away. Like I knew I was gonna be an entrepreneur my whole life. My whole life, man. Back in elementary school, I had friends making friendship bracelets. And I was the plug. Oh, you want them pink and red? You want the white and black? I got you. To the point where my school principal had to shut me down. He was like, "Hey, man, you know, you're running an illegal business." But you know, my life has just been pretty much centered on trying to do the right thing. My dad's an engineer. He taught me that way of thinking, going to college, getting an education, ended up getting into the food business, my early career, college, and then making my way out. And so became a quality manager, got into the quality side of business. I've been doing quality in some respects for the last 7 or 8 years. So, I really like things with a lot of moving parts, right? And business is one of those. So I wanted to start a t-shirt business when I was in college, but I kind of got stressed out working with graphic artists. So I kind of gave it up kind of early. I'm like, hey, I'm saying I want it to look like this. And then it comes back and it's like, ugh, but that's way before Fiverr and, making some of these connections with people who are really dope. So yeah, that's early life for me.
Hey man, at Fiverr, I love Fiverr. That's how I got my logo created. So big shout outs to Fiverr, man.
Shout outs to Fiverr.
Yeah, seriously, it's a way for entrepreneurs to connect with one another. And the prices are nice too, because
Yes.
and I can relate to the graphic design. So back when I used to rap, I was big on merch and like trying to have merch and stuff, and going back and forth with people about shirts and all of the different things you want to design. It was a headache.
Mhm.
This is an unpaid plug. Maybe one day Fiverr will pay me for advertisement, but right now this is an unpaid advertisement for Fiverr. But if you are looking for, I mean, pretty much anything,
Yeah.
go to Fiverr. You'll find it on Fiverr. You'll find people, dope people, man. Really, the dude I connected with was from Pakistan that did my
Hmm.
logo, which was crazy. I went in looking for a black male potentially to work with, but nobody responded. So went with the person that did, and yeah, he was super professional.
Hmm.
And so that's quality control. And so when we first talked, and you mentioned that you were in quality control, I I feel like anytime I think of quality control, I think of that little sticker that's on the shirt, right? And like, so
Look, QC.
yeah, right. And I'm like, I feel like I've seen it in movies and stuff, and I feel like I have a very rudimentary understanding of what quality control is. So can you talk to us a little bit, just educate the people, what is
Sure.
quality control?
Well, as one of my mentors in the early days said, it's about beginning with the end in mind. It's really just about a principled way of thinking. You know, you want a consistent end product every time, so you're going to have to follow a consistent procedure, right? A lot of times at workplaces, you have these SOPs, you have these work instructions, you may have these low tech guidance items, that show you how you're supposed to get from point A to point Z. But what doesn't happen is the training of the discipline aspect of it. What I run into a lot of the time, since basically what I do all day is notice problems and fix them, what I've run into a lot is people are so focused on time. Time's the most important thing to people when it comes to processes, but it's also the most, the thing that makes them the most reckless. Because, let's just say I have a deviation or error that has to be documented, and I ask somebody, well, what happened? Most of the time, what I'm going to get is, I'm in a rush. I was in a rush, or something of that nature. So really, when you talk about quality as a principle, it really just comes down to focus on the end result without really being too concerned about those aspects that may be obstacles, right? Such as time. Because in my first job, it was a production facility. So let's just say every minute that the plant's down, it costs the company, $1,200, $2,500. So that adds up real quick, and so they want to pressure you into making these decisions as to whether this product is suitable or non-suitable because of the aspect of time. But I was always taught, listen, you take that time factor out and you make a sound logical decision based off of the references that you have in front of you and your experience. That's it. And so now I'm taking that aspect and just trying to incorporate it into my current endeavors, blacks and what have you.
Yeah, and in education, we talk a lot about backwards planning. My dad was somebody that talked to me a lot about backwards planning, like starting with the end in mind and then kind of setting those goals and those mile markers along the way. I love what you said about time too, because we always look at time as this factor, and it's like the faster we move, the more productive we can be. But if what you're doing in that time isn't quality, then
Hmm.
in the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't
You know,
matter.
right. Like if you're producing stuff that's not quality, people don't want it. And we were talking before we got on about the hoodie that you sent me, and it was funny because literally the first thing I thought when I took it out the bag, I felt the material and I was like, yo, this is quality stuff right here. And so again, when we reconnected, you're talking about quality control, and I can see how the mentality that you have through your 9 to 5 really foster ultimately like the mentality that it takes to be a quality entrepreneur, right? Because
Hmm.
that quality control and understanding that, hey, start with the end in mind and work backwards. I spent most of my life just like living in the moment. And
Hmm.
after a while, you realize, and I'm 35 now, and so like, okay, that's not working anymore. Like, I gotta really start planning. I got a wife now. We want to have a family. I have to get ahead of this stuff and start planning for the future. And so talked about how you got on your pathway. What are some of the things that like you've faced as far as difficulties or challenges or adversities that ultimately even led you to Blacts, right? Like, or even have you had other, startups or nonprofits or things that you tried to do that didn't work out for you?
That's a great question. So I'm gonna answer the last one first. No, this is actually my first shot at entrepreneurship. But like I said earlier, I feel like my whole life is culminating to this moment. When I was in, I told you about the early years, but when I was in middle school, high school, I linked up with a guy named Gerald who he was talking business in middle school. He was talking about stuff that he wanted to do in middle school. And so we really met on that level. And so we started like, sketching up ideas for product lines. And I had some ideas that I wanted to do back then. I wanted to do a breath mint called Kick in the Mouths, and I just had this idea of a advertisement where like the placeholder, in football, it's like waiting for the ball to come to hold it for the kicker to kick it. He's like, man, I need a kick in the mouth. And then the kicker ends up kicking him in the mouth because he said that he wanted one. A couple other things that, may have played back then, but it's just that iron sharpening iron relationship. But he ended up passing away in high school tragically, and so that was like a big one for me because it's like, yo, who am I going to talk shop with? You know, we were talking about going to school together and doing these creative ideas. And so that really slowed down, I thought, my path for a few years. I kind of put it out of my mind. When I went to college, I did think about starting a t-shirt line, but I just, it felt too hard. I was too soft, really, at the time to pull it off. And it just kept nagging at me that I'm supposed to be free, out in the wilderness, getting it, doing something from scratch. But it wasn't really until this year that I really got the gumption to go ahead and get out here and just try. So I don't really need to remind everybody what 2020's been like. But for me, with my wife being pregnant, us being separated from family, we're sitting here instead of, she had these, we had these grand ideas of, having family doulas, like her sisters coming and hanging out and, really being this whole environment of ushering this baby into the world. And that's not really what happened the way we planned it. We grew this baby together by ourselves under quarantine, under lockdown. And the emotional strain that working through the pandemic in a medical setting now is where I work now was very taxing. I was considered essential. I had to go to work every day. She was a teacher at the time. So, like, that led to me almost having a breakdown, to be honest with you. About June, July, you know, after George Floyd, and not to mention Ahmaud Arbery, who's from basically around the way here in Georgia, I decided I had to go talk to somebody. Like, yo, I'm a strong minded individual. Positivity is always there for me. I didn't really understand what depression meant before this moment, to be honest. And so after talking to somebody, me and my wife together, really, I just realized that this is good. It's good for me to expand my feelings, and my emotions. And in the aftermath, now we're talking about August. I realized that everything that I went through this year up to this point were really like labor pains, or contractions to birth the idea of blacts. I won't explain what blacts means until it's time for me to, but yeah.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
And I just wanted to say quick RIP to your boy Gerald, man. That's got to be a tough loss for you. And even hearing you talk about it now, I can see that it still weighs on you because losing somebody like that and people that had that vision in middle school. I got my homie Mitch that's coming up in a couple episodes, and he's one of the people that like he was so sharp in middle school. Like he knew like there was no question that Mitch was going to make it, right? Like, it's like when you see somebody like that, that like that drive and ambition and intelligence and just the fact that they're so laser focused, it's like, yo, I'm cheering for you, man. Like, get out there and make it. And so, definitely wanted to just take a moment to say RIP to your homie Gerald. But also just to continue to like say you're doing this in a lot of ways and continuing that legacy and that dream that Gerald had, man. And so it's dope that you've now had an opportunity, and we'll talk about Blacts in a second, to like kind of carry that legacy on.
Mm-hmm.
What you said about just making that sort of analogy between like the birth of your business and like the birth of your child, that's crazy, man. So insightful. And shout outs to your wife and to you for raising a baby through lockdown, right? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand. I personally don't understand, but I know a couple people that have had children through this process, and I couldn't even imagine. And it's just incredible, man. It's incredible what women have had to kind of endure and put up with. And shout outs to their partners too for being right there with them. But yeah, Teddye, man, that's impactful. And the mental health piece. And we actually talked about that on the phone too,
Mm-hmm.
because, like I told you, I've been suffering from depression since 14. Want to shout out my therapist, Omar, who has been arguably the biggest help to me through this pandemic, especially around George Floyd. Like, We had a whole session one day where I was just ranting about just the atrocities of being a black man in America. And he put everything to the side and was like, listen, if you ever need me to talk about that again, I'll make the time. It don't got to be our regularly scheduled, routine. Just let
Hmm.
me know. And so, yeah, the underlying theme through the Third Lap podcast is definitely trials and tribulations and triumph, but it's also mental health and addressing mental health in a positive way, because it's so important. And we have to make sure as black men, as people in general, that we find a space to have that time. And my wife and I, our therapist, she told me something that I'm gonna turn into merch, but that black joy is a revolutionary act. And
Wow.
man, it's mind blowing. And I'm telling the dude that got the
Wow.
merch machine going. So if I see this on the shirt, I'm coming for you, Teddie.
Hey, you getting your cut, man. You
Hey,
getting your
I
cut. It's recorded now.
yeah, right. That's a fact. But yeah,
Uh,
in one of our sessions, we were sitting down with her, and I really struggle with joy. I really struggle with sustaining joy. Joy is a really
mhm.
hard thing for me to capture and sustain. And she was flat out about it. Shadeen was like, it's important for black people to be joyous. Black joy is a revolutionary act because white supremacy, we were never supposed to be joyful. And so every time you feel joy and every time you allow it to just inundate you and you sustain it, that's a slap in the face of white supremacy. And I was like, yo, you don't got to tell me nothing else. That's the last thing you ever had to tell me about joy.
Wow.
And so, to all my black and brown people out here, I hope that you carry that with you, that your joy is a revolutionary act. And you being happy is a revolutionary act, man. And so, Teddie, I hope that as you continue moving forward, that you feel that joy and that happiness. And certainly with your daughter, like just the joy in your face of being with her and just being around her, man, it seems to really have brought you a lot of joy.
You you're right, man, because I was so nervous about her getting here, man. The health statistics for pregnant black women is crazy. And so like I'm a research guy, and so I couldn't help but look this stuff up during the time, and it's just like I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with my wife and with my daughter. Especially because I couldn't go to all the appointments because this is quarantine. At the beginning, obviously I could, but there came a point when it was just her, and it was never my intention to leave my wife alone. And so that that right there is just a blessing that she came healthy, kicking, screaming, no issues. That's the gift of God too, man.
If you don't have a black doctor, a black nurse, a black, everything pretty much, that like the chances of you not surviving your pregnancy just
Hmm.
continue to ratchet up percentage points. And it is like it's unbelievable, but then again, when you in this country and you've experienced the things that we have generationally, it is believable. It
It,
is.
and you know what's the crazy thing about it? I looked it up a little while ago, and it's like, at the turn of the century, you know, we saw that the medical technology had a big boom, right? They started doing procedures that were never possible before with chemicals and medications that had never existed before too. But the funny thing is that being a midwife or being a doula was a very popular thing for black women. It was black women that were giving birth to black babies for a long time. But then when they tried to not tried, but when they industrialized the medical system, they they blocked black women for taking care of black babies and black bodies. They made it illegal to be a midwife. They made it illegal to do abortions. That's a whole nother topic, but that was part of black care. And so then they barred, black people from seeking the medical licensures and things like that to continue to perform procedures. And so they lost control. We lost control of our bodies, and so that's how we got to where we are. I mean, because it wouldn't be no thing if all your aunties were midwives, you know. So it's really important to like understand all of these mechanisms and context. Like this is a system. with a lot of moving parts.
Absolutely. And like to that point, the system is a disruptive system, right? It's like even when you talk back about education, because I'm in education, and so I oftentimes like bring it back to things that I know and understand. But it's like when we went from those schoolhouses where our teachers were black and they were on sharecroppers' lands or on slave land, right? Or like
Hmm.
plantations. And then when we were allowed to integrate and you see this like wide variety of teachers now come into our schools to teach our students, that disconnect grows. And it was purposefully disruptive, right? Not saying that people that aren't black can't teach black children, but it takes a level of empathy and understanding and just going all in and like really communicating with the students and being a
Hmm.
part of the community in a way that oftentimes we already were, that some of these teachers that are in our schools even today aren't. And I read this study about medical students currently here in America, and I believe it said 1 in 4 medical students, and this was in 2019, believe the misconception that black women and black people overall had a higher tolerance for pain. And so we're talking about something that has been disproven and disrupted, but still is persistent because when you look at the folks that are teaching these med students, they're not black, right? Like they just aren't for so many different reasons. And if they are, oftentimes they're not resonating with those students in a way where they understand that like that is a misconception. And
Hmm.
so again, man, shout outs to you, shout outs to your wife. You know what you said about the midwives and the doulas being black, and then all of a sudden they aren't anymore. No wonder we're seeing these high mortality rates and all of this disruptive stuff happening in our communities. And so, this isn't a medical podcast though, so
Hmm.
it's like I'm easy to get off track. But I think that like really what I really want to dive into now is Blacts Apparel, man. I
Okay.
have the hoodie on right now. We connected about the website. We connected about the work that you're doing. We talked about Instagram and how we both trying to grow and get better with IG. Because we both mentioned that like it wasn't a strength of ours. I can say your Instagram game is much better than mine, sir. So, for whatever that's worth. But talk to me, man. You told me before about how Blacts Apparel even became an idea for you. But yeah,
Mhm.
talk us through that, man. How did this even start?
Okay, well, we kind of talked earlier about the mental anguish that we collectively felt during the quarantine and the upheaval because of the events that occurred and the tragic deaths of black bodies around this country. And I was mad, man. I was so mad. I was so angry. I was so hurt. I've never cried so much in my life, man. Just breaking down for no reasons. Grown man probably ain't cried in 6, 7. I haven't cried since my wedding day, probably. So that's 4 years up to that point, man. I was just so hurt, and I really, for the first time, saw it as, man, that's me right there. I'm no different than Ahmaud Arbery, really. I'm no different than George Floyd. The wrong thing can happen, and now I'm 6 feet under, or a pile of ashes. You know what I'm saying? And so that feeling, that hurt for my community, it really just spurred me. I have to do something. I'm a fixer. I'm a quality manager. What's the kappa? How are we going to correct it? What's the root cause? Those are the things that I use in my day to day. And so, the Lord just started to work on me. I spoke out a little bit within my community. We had a town hall meeting at my church that was broadcast on Facebook Live that touched a lot of people and just gave us as black people, and people of color a chance to just speak about what that moment meant for us. So I'm glad to have that recorded somewhere on the web, so I can look back a year from then and just say, hey, what, see where I've come from. But uh, so anyway, during the summer, I'm dealing with this, and then in August, I'm kind of coming on that on the downside of that mountain, or on the upside of that valley. I don't know which one it was, but I was laying in the bed on August 26th, me and my wife, and I just set up, man, and I'm just like, I don't know where this idea for blacks came from, but I'm like, I got to do this, babe. Go on the web, go buy that domain right now. Is it available? So she bought it that night and I forgot about it, honestly. But I just started to work fearlessly on bringing it about. I just felt that pull that this is what I have to do. I'm not scared about what the outcome is going to be. I just need to see it. And so from August 26th until our website dropped on what, October 3rd, we just worked. Blacts really to me is just about, just like the saying says, knowing my people. Okay, so this is a labor of love for me. I realize that I need to be re-educated on who I am and what I really mean to this country, just as a black body. And so I'm going through this journey, um, privately, quietly, and I'm just like, this is something that everybody's going to have to go through anyway. Why not figure out a way to make this like a community quest? How can I make this into something that other people can feel a part of? And I'm already going through the legwork of learning it. How can I put this and make it a transparent process so that people can enjoy it and people can feel like they're along for the ride? And so what Blacts really just is, it's the awareness and the empowerment of Black reality, past and present. I see Blacts as a fact-based fashion line. Okay. Um, my imagination is based off of 451 years of reality for us. And so anything that I'm going to put on a shirt, I'm referencing it from within our community. I'm referencing it from available information. I'm not making anything up, because my biggest thing is that the the black facts of our nation hasn't been um, really made available to us, and has really been um, kind of not necessarily swept under the rug, but it hasn't been given the platform in which it really deserves. And so yeah, so that's all I'm doing, bro. If that makes sense.
I mean, I think fairly you could say not only has it been like swept under the rug, it was swept under the rug into like an open hatch where it fell down. Then they shut the hatch and then they drove nails into the hatch and then they put the rug back on top and told us there is no hatch, there is no hole, there is
There
no
is
rug,
no
right?
hatch. Wow,
You know,
that's true.
and I love it because you're so when Hat first told me about you and he was like, yo, you gotta connect with Teddye because what he's building right now, even though it's in its beginning stages, is something revolutionary. And like revolutionary acts are things that I hold near and dear to my heart because of the importance of it, right? And you know, the
Mhm.
fact that you tied black facts and black history facts to your apparel through the QR code. I was like, man, that's ingenious. Like this dude, what he's thinking of is no doubt gonna take off. And when it does, like I can't wait to see it happen.
Mhm.
And you know, as a person that even though my mom was a revolutionary in the 60s and my dad is somebody that just shoots it forward, like he's not a
Mhm.
person that hides the facts whatsoever, it still took me a really long time to learn about the historical figures of our country. And you know, we even talked about the first black quarterback in the NFL and like all of these
Mhm.
different people that get swept under the rug like we talked about and just are never heard from again. And there are so many people, right? So many contemporary people that we don't get a chance to learn about or learn from,
Mhm.
because honestly, America is scared of what they've contributed. You know, if we knew our history the way that we should and the way that we ultimately will, it changes our narrative and it
Yes.
changes our movements and it changes our communities for better.
Oh man, you hit a nail. I don't know how many nails you hit on the head, but there must have been like a little group of them, because I mean, exactly, bro. I think now that I've been like an increase of sensitivity to just being black. Like I read these stories and I research these stories and I just connect with them, like you're saying with Marlon Briscoe, the first black quarterback to ever play in the professional game in the NFL. Like that story is crazy. He's Lamar Jackson. That's the crazy thing. Like they did him the same way that they do like they do Lamar Jackson now. Like he was a quarterback in college. He was nice. Okay, you want to draft him, but you want to draft him as a skill player. But he said, I'm not going to sign my contract until you allow me to go out and try out for quarterback because that's who I am. America has been telling black people who they are for so long, and it doesn't know how to stop. Just stop. Allow us to be who we organically are. That's what we need in this moment. And that gives a lot of people an opportunity just to discover it. Because once you discover it, you'll find that black joy that you were talking about earlier. Because we can rap, and you know how it is with starting a business from scratch, especially in these times. You do have a lot of low moments. You do have a lot of moments of maybe second guessing yourself or not knowing if it's going to pop and all of that. But when you find those moments of like, man, this is God, it makes everything worth it.
Yeah, no, that's a fact, man. And as a person that is a two-time failed business owner, I have two businesses that I started and was operating for a while that ended up going under. I think something that you talked about before was that like kind of fear of this. And that's something that I had for a really long time. And that definitely fed into what took me so long to even get to the podcast because I was scared. I'm not afraid to say I was scared. I was traumatized after two failed endeavors. But the more I read about people and back to the facts here and like just the historical people that we don't really get a chance to learn about or learn from, the more I read about Black entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general that have failed 10 times, 15 times, right, before they finally got to where they were trying to go. I was like, okay, like I still got maybe 5, 10 more fails left before I figure this out. I'm being hard on myself. I still got 10 fails before I got to figure it out.
Right.
And so, it's a beautiful thing to know that there are people that came before you that went through the same difficulties but overcame them. And again, like that's the whole core component, or whole core philosophy behind this podcast, the third lap, which is the hardest of the laps of a mile. When you're running 4 laps for a mile, like the third lap is the hardest because you're so close to the finish, but you're still you so far into it that it's like, can I get there? And so, with this, I hope that as people listen and as more guests come on and as the community of the Third Lab podcast grows and interconnects all of the different guests together, we realize that we are not the first ones to do this. And it's funny because Hatris had mentioned in his episode that no one's an island, right? Like nobody's in it by themselves. And there's so much just motivation and knowing that like you're not by yourself, man. And so, it's cool that like you're using your platform to shine a light on that and to really help people understand that there are so many people that came before you that look just like you.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
And so we talked a little bit about like the facts themselves. I'm sitting here looking on my arm here. I see this nice QR code on my arm. So talk to me about that. What is the QR code?
Cool. So yeah, like I said, every item of clothing that you get from Blacts, I want to give you a takeaway, right? I want you to have something that you can share with somebody else because Blacts is about community building, right? It's about community building. And so with the QR code, what I want to do is give you some points of reference to that person, to that idea that I'm giving you on the product line. So I believe you got on the Nina Simone hoodie. So on the back, it has a really dope saying by Nina Simone that's paraphrased. And basically, we don't have an excuse for not understanding our history at this point. We don't have an excuse to not know the heroes that came before us. And she's right. And she said that in the 70s. So with the QR code, so basically you'd be able to scan the QR code and it will take you to points of reference for Nina Simone. So With the QR code, if it'll take you to the website, it has her biography on there. It has a really dope song called Baltimore by Nina Simone with a nice montage of the city back in the day. My favorite song by her. And it also take you to a link for the Netflix documentary for Miss Nina Simone so that you actually can be aware of what you're wearing and the impact. And so I plan on doing that and keeping that energy going forward.
Yeah, I'm here for all of that. I'm here for Nina Simone, first of all, like
Yeah.
incredible artist, incredible just person. Only caught a
Activist.
portion of and that's the big thing, right? Is that she was a huge activist, and Malcolm X has this really well known sort of segment where he really talks down on like performing artists as revolutionaries. And he mentions Dick Gregory in it. I don't remember if he mentioned Nina Simone or not, but I always like, and Brother Malcolm, I'm named after him, like, one of the preeminent scholars and thinkers of the revolutionary time in the 60s, and somebody that I look up to and like really just think the world of. But I also am like, but you gotta chill though, because while you're sitting here saying that artists and creatives shouldn't be at the forefront of the revolution, or they really shouldn't have any participation at all, if it isn't for the Dick Gregorys, the Nina Simones, the revolution doesn't get where it's going, right?
No.
Because they have this exceptional platform that they leverage to be able to get this out to the world. The same people that wouldn't listen to Malcolm X are going to listen to Nina Simone, right? The same people that might be turned off by X's message find Dick Gregory hilarious. We've had all of these artists that are also activists. And like sometimes we really need to just take a step back and recognize and give appreciation for those people, because without them, Nina Simone specifically, like we wouldn't be where we are. And so I'm proud to be rocking a Nina Simone hoodie. And I plan on buying my wife one too, because I know she rocks with Nina as well.
And I feel like in the Black community, and when I say Black community, I mean the BLACT community. Like I want people to know what love means, because in the big Black community, we haven't always had a chance to develop it and let it grow to insurmountable levels, because they come in and they tear it down once they see that we actually doing something. Shout outs to the Greenwood district in Tulsa. You know, I got a story about Oklahoma, Black Oklahoma, on the social media page, so please go check that out. My whole thing is that I'm not trying to I'm not trying to create anything. All I'm trying to do is create a platform for those who do know to pop off and share their work, because they're the ones who did the work. So I hopefully I'm praying that I have some build some connections and form some partnerships with those people doing the work. Right now I'm in the middle of talking to some mental health experts, and probably developing some really good content off of that, because I'm wanting to showcase the full Black diaspora. Okay, we're a very complex community. We are not a monolith. We have people who love anime. We have people who love Real Housewives of Atlanta. Okay, it's that's really two sides of the spectrum, and that's okay. You know, everybody should be invited to the cookout. Nobody should be disenfranchised for who you like and what you like. And so I want to showcase that full diaspora through Blacts.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's all I have is I love it, man. And giving that platform to people, because like you said, we aren't a monolith, and through voting and through politics, it was funny because after the Cubans in Miami voted, and they like tend every time to lean Republican, but this time we're heavy leaning to Trump. And on Twitter, I see a lot of Latinx people that were not Cuban say like, yo, like we're not all like, this is not a monolith. Like all Latinx people, all people from that portion of the diaspora aren't the same. Like we have different motivations, we have different wants and needs. Mexican Americans and Cuban Americans and Argentinian Americans, and Brazilian Americans, like all of us have different experiences, and you have to stop looking at us as just one group. And I'm sitting there and I'm seeing people say that, and I'm like, wow, Black people have been saying this for a really long time. Like we've been screaming this from the mountaintop for the longest because we aren't. And the highlights that you gave around folks that love anime. You have people that love skiing. You have people
Yeah.
that are heavy in the video games. You got street dudes that are heavy in the streets and they ain't interested in none of that stuff.
Hmm.
And why is it that we have to be identified as one single thing or attach ourselves to one thing when we
Hmm.
are so dynamic and so multifaceted? And so, yeah, man, I'm here for seeing you create that apparel, create that platform, any way, of course, that I can help.
Hmm.
And use the Third Lap podcast to help Blacts. That you don't even got to say a word, man. You just hit me on the line and we're gonna make it happen. Because again, after we've connected and definitely through this episode, I get a chance to just see what a righteous person you are and how you're trying to use your skills and your talent to just provide a light to people that have been in the darkness for so long. And so, Teddye, we talked about where your company is right now, ultimately where you like to take it in the near future, and then definitely turn it into 2021. But I want to hear from you, man. What keeps you motivated, right? Like, this is hard work. People ask me, hey, Mal, how's the podcast going? And I always got a smile on my face, and I'm always
Hmm.
like, man, this is dope. I love it. This is my creative outlet. And in my mind, I talk to my wife, I'm real like, yo, this is tiring. I get off work and then I gotta edit episodes and then I gotta do this and I gotta do social media and then finally it's time to go to sleep and then I wake up and I'm going back to work and this is tiring. I love it, but it's exhausting. And so,
Hmm.
but my why is I want to make sure that people have the platform that they deserve and also I enjoy it. And I love connecting with people like yourself and I love being able to just talk shop, man. This is my thing. And so that's my why. But what's your why? What keeps you going day after day, knowing that like this is tough work, but work that has to be done?
Who? I would say definitely my family, my support group, but my daughter, man, little Teddye. Little Teddye is what motivates me because I want to be able to give her something at some point. There's been so many generations of black people who haven't given each other much. And I'm talking about just right before me. My grandparents passed on my dad's side. My dad didn't get anything but, what he wanted out the house. And that's what has happened in the black community for so long. A lot of it has nothing to do with us. It's a system, right? But I want to be able to give her something, and I want to be able to show her who she is earlier in life than I did. My dad's very proud that he has life insurance. He's like, hey man, if I pass away, you getting a third, brother. You getting a third, But I want to give her a third, a half, 100% of this business, you know, for her to be able to not have to start from scratch if she don't want to. Hey, sell it if you don't want it, but you have an opportunity to have generational wealth through this family business, through this labor of love. And also I want to be able to give her just the understanding of who she is. I want her to be able to know her people quite easily because, 15, 20 years from now, if I keep going, the Lord willing, we're gonna be like Henry Louis Gates, okay? We're gonna know everything about black folks, man. You never know. I might have to take over finding your roots from him, you know? I don't know. Whatever the Lord has for me. So that's really what my motivation is now.
And shout outs to baby Teddye. I told my mom and my wife when I have a daughter, I'm naming her Malcolm Meta. That immediately got shot to the earth. They was like, "You're not naming her Malcolm Meta." I say to be determined. I have not been fully outvoted yet. I want to recount. I'm a sore loser. I want to recount. We're gonna recount this.
Hey,
Um,
stop the count.
right, right. When my count goes in, then we stopping the count after my count. Ain't no more counting after that.
Hey, your boy said whenever they stopped counting, I was winning, but now that they counting, I'm losing again.
Come
Like,
on, that is
yeah.
not my boy though. I'm not gonna let you throw that on me after I told you as the Xbox supporter that's your man. So now you try to flip it on me.
I know he got a PlayStation.
Yeah, chill. Don't do that. Don't do that. I will not stand. We'll end this episode right now for the PlayStation slander, man. But no, that's dope, dude. It's awesome. And I realized as I was talking about my why, I left out my family. which is like the biggest reason that I continue forward and the biggest reason that I do
Mm,
everything that I do. And then like my family, as in like my nuclear family, like my blood, but ultimately my family as in Black people in the Black diaspora.
mm,
Because I feel as though with what God blessed me, if I wasn't out here trying to actualize change with every opportunity that I was given, what am I really doing?
mm.
If it's just for me and just for the people that share my bloodline, then we fell short of our mission. I will say, quick note, anybody that knows Philly knows that the city of brotherly love is a misnomer. If you go to an Eagles game and you see people fighting, they are probably both Eagles fans. So so we don't always get along. But I love the note that you had about love in general and how it takes different forms, and we need to understand that love isn't just, again, like a monolith. Like it really is something that is multifaceted. It has a bunch of different layers and aspects to it. But
Mm.
that component about like brotherly and sisterly love is definitely a reason why I do it too, is because I love seeing us love one another and love on each other, man. There's nothing like it. And
Mm.
so we talked about your business. We talked about what motivates you. You got a chance to rep your hood and where you're from. This is the portion here, and anybody that's made it this far through all of these episodes know that we get to the motivational thoughts for the people. And so this is your 2 to 3 minute session of like, hey man, if this is where some way somehow they magically pressed the button and just tuned into this component or this portion of the podcast, what are the motivational thoughts that you want to leave with folks? What do you want them to know and understand walking away from this episode?
The first thing that I will say is it's not that hard. What am I talking about? Anything. Nothing specific, but what that means to you is not that hard. Any complex process, any complex idea, any journey is just a series of steps, right? You just have to literally put one foot in front of the other and see what happens, because I guarantee you where you finish is not going to be where you start. And for me, the growth so far just from Blacts is worth it. Just the being in a different space, man. I feel like I'm about 5 miles down the road, but guess what? That's 5 miles. I can't even see my former self right now. So that's one. The other thing is support your friends, um, support your family, check in with them. It's really easy. It's just about having those conversations with people about what they're interested in, and you'll be astonished at what you guys have in common. Anybody could go and spend, $50 on a Nike hoodie. That's easy. But find something that you connect with that somebody made from scratch. Ain't nothing like my grandma biscuits. Ain't nothing like my mother-in-law's biscuits or my mom's, you know, shoot, man, my mom makes everything good. I can't pick one thing. Ain't nothing like they cooking because they make it from scratch. They make it with love, man. Don't you want that for everything that you associate yourself with? Or do you just want something that's cookie cutter? Because really, for me, that's dead. I want to support people within my community, and I want all of us to come up together. So that takes you really, you know, addressing what's stopping you in your own life, and also just trying with the first person that comes to mind, man. You got a best friend, you got a cousin, you got an auntie and uncle that has a small business that may be struggling because of corona or whatever. Go out there and bless them with something. You're gonna get something back. That's what business is. Ain't nobody out here asking for donations. I don't have no donation link on my website. Okay. Anything that you give to Blacts, you're getting something back, and you're going to get blessed as well. So that's the other thing. Maybe one other point that I will make is, I know this may sound cliche because it's my company, but truly get to know your people on and offline. Okay. One of the biggest regrets I have is that I didn't feel this way fully when my grandparents were alive on my dad's side, or when my grandmother on my mom's side had her mental faculties. She now has Alzheimer's, so it's not a lot that I can get out of her. I wish that I would have got to know those people who were, you know, who helped raise me a little bit better. You know, I heard an old story that my grandpa once served as a bodyguard for Martin Luther King. Do I know when? Do I know where? No, because I wasn't that interested in it at the time. But that would have been a dope story to tell today. Like get to know your people who are close to you and also do your research. I mean, there's a lot of really cool social media pages that will just give you quick snippets that are digestible in the moment. I'm thinking about 2 minutes of Black History, I believe it's called, at 2 minutes of Black History. It's just 2 minute, 3 minute snippets. Like focus for 3 minutes, learn something cool, and then you could go back to swiping and scrolling, you know. Spend your time a little bit wisely. I'm not trying to be everybody's uncle, but I got a niece I got like four nieces and a nephew now. So I am an uncle. I'm Uncle Ted. So listen to Uncle Ted, get to know your people.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah. I was actually going to call you Professor Teddye, man, because you out here dropping knowledge and leading class today. I appreciate it. And with everything you named and everything you mentioned really drives home sort of what I think like this whole podcast episode has been about. It's not that hard. And man, it took me a really long time to apply that to all aspects of my life. I'm a person that believes in hard work and determination and like, man, I'll put my head down and just drive my way through it. If I believe I could do it, it's getting done. Or God is going to intervene some way and divert me in a different direction. But if God ain't getting in the way, I'm getting it done. And so, but I didn't always apply that to this part of my life. That was my professional side, right? Like that was LinkedIn. Malcolm was like, I'm getting it done that way. But then Facebook and Twitter, Malcolm was like, I don't know if I could do it, man. So it's not that hard. Yeah. I love what you said about loving on your people while they're here. I actually had a post that I put on Facebook before. I cursed out my cousin because he's a Black Trump supporter, and I'm pretty sure he reported me. So I got a 4-day ban on Facebook. So and my boy, I texted him to tell him that. He was like, man, you stay in Facebook jail. I do. I stay in it. I can't help it, man. Sometimes people say some crazy stuff and I get crazy right with them, and I'm in Facebook jail again. One day I'll learn, one day maybe I won't. Who knows? But love your people while they're here. That's such a valuable lesson. I was fortunate to have my mom on the podcast for episode 2. I'm gonna have my father coming up on here in the near future. I've already talked to several really close friends of mine. I'm sure I'll have other family members come on at some point when they're ready and willing. Also, learning about your history. And I was blessed because my maternal grandmother lived until she was like 97 or 98 years old. And so she was such a fountain of wealth. And one day I'm riding a train going to New York City from New Jersey, and I bump into this Caucasian woman, real dope lady. So we just talking about a bunch of stuff, and I forget how my grandmother came up, but she was like, yo, you need to record, like sit down with her and just record and just talk to her. And she was like, get it down on video. And of course, I never did it. My grandmother, was like, you're not recording anything. I'm not doing none of that. But thankfully, she did relay and communicate a bunch of stories about our family. And my mom, who is so interested in that stuff, has taken it a step further with her sisters and like really dug into our history and helped us learn more about our past. But yeah, man, love on your people. And then the last piece that you mentioned was supporting your friends and supporting Black businesses. I can't hold that or prop that up enough. And through this podcast is a portion of the way that I'm able to support my friends and family in their business and entrepreneurial endeavors, because I'm putting the word out there about it. I put links to their work out here, but also cop stuff. Like pretty much everybody that's been on here, if they got something, if I haven't bought it yet, I'm on my way to buying it. My wife, I'm always, busting her chops because, oh my God, it's a package here every day, bro. And I was like, I'm gonna cut you off, man. I'm about to call somebody up at Amazon, but it's not even Amazon. She finds Black women specifically on Instagram, and is oftentimes supporting their businesses, buying stuff from them. If it's not for her, for me, for our dogs, for her family members, whoever it may be. And she set such an example for me of like supporting Black business. People need the help, but not just as a handout, but like you said, man, you could cop that Nike hoodie or you could cop a Blacts hoodie. I'm copping a Blacts hoodie. The Blacts hoodie is official, it's well made, and it has a QR code that's going to put me on to more knowledge that I may not have. Nike
Mm-hmm.
not teaching me nothing, man. Phil Knight got all my money already. I got 8
Mm-hmm.
Nike sneakers sitting downstairs right now. Phil Knight, if you listening, you're not getting no more bread from me until you come on the podcast, brother. So, so support your people, love your people, and then again, like you said, hey man, it's really not that hard. Go out here and get it done. And so, Teddye, as we're wrapping stuff up, and again, I'm here with Teddye Gandy, husband, father, founder, and creator of Blacts Apparel. As we wrap this up, we get into the tail end of this. First, again, I really just want to thank you for coming on, man, sharing your inspirational story and talking to us and motivating us to go out here and just get the job done. What are some of the things that you read or have been reading or currently reading or want to read in the future? And, as always, this will get added to the Third List podcast book club. And I hope people are reading these books, because if you are, you're getting put on game out here. So what are some of the books that you've read or are looking to read that have really made an impact for you?
Um, you know, one of them is The Souls of Black Folks by W.E.B., man. W.E.B. he's such an OG when it comes to the black thought, man. Like, the book is so great because you can tell that he's just literally going through the mental anguish and showing you the work. He's just describing these different scenarios in which black people have had to push and survive through, that's made us so resilient and made us so strong. And it really changed my opinion of myself in a positive way, and it really helped me to think a little bit deeper than just surface level of, oh, white people are being mean to me, you know, because that doesn't mean anything, right? Because black people are mean to me too, right? so so that's one book that's, I can't plug that hard enough. Anything WEB is lit. Okay. Um, on the other side of my life is The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Um, super dope book about the history of food safety in America. That actually I talked about today, and I was like, man, I'm glad that was brought up. Is how much I love that book. Before The Jungle came out, the federal government was not worried about any of these food processors, man. There was all kinds of ratchet stuff going on in these doggone food processing facilities. And, since I have the background, I started working in food processing. And then I read the book and I was like, yo, we've come a long way. So those are two books that are really engaging, thought provoking, and you're gonna start checking labels definitely after you read The Jungle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to go from like eating meat to vegan real quick, read The Jungle.
Read The Jungle.
I got a chance to read through it. I didn't finish the whole thing, but I gotta go back and finish it. But the portions that I did read, to your point, it was like, yo, it was mind blowing. Between that and this documentary on HBO that I saw maybe like 20 years ago around the food processing industry, I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know how long I could keep doing this.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it because I have no willpower when it comes to beef ribs, man. I'm all in. They I haven't gotten free just yet. I haven't broken the chains just yet. But yeah, The Jungle was a really good read. Like you said, anything by WEB is awesome. I have that book, Kindle version on my phone. I've been reading that in like 4 books simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I have to stop doing that. I used to just knock one out at a time. Now I'm doing like 3 or 4 different things all at the same time. And that means if you're doing that many things at the same time, you're not doing any of them at all. So I could definitely say though, The Souls of Black Folk has been good. One that I wanted to toss in here that I read was from Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro.
Mm.
That really helped to reformulate my thought process around so many different things. Carter G. Woodson really holds Black folks accountable, because the miseducation of the Negro it's not a book about just how, oh, the white man did this and did that.
Mm-hmm.
No, Carter G. Woodson was talking about, how we've done it to ourselves.
Yes.
The role that the church portion like played in it and like their
Ooh.
portion of this, the role that HBCUs played in this and their portion in this. And, he's really honest and factually based. And, walking away from the miseducation of the Negro, I was like, wow, okay. I needed that. I needed that gut check because, sometimes we, even the most woke and intelligent of us, fall back into looking at this systemic problem of racism and white supremacy in this country. And we always want to put it on the white man's shoulders and like, no, nope, nah, we got some of this to shoulder too. We got a good amount of this to shoulder as Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the miseducation of the Negro really helped me to understand that in a comprehensive and intelligent way. And so, Teddye, as we round this out here, what's the social media, either for Blacts Apparel or for yourself? And as always, I'll have this posted on the website, the3rdlappodcast.com. And then I'll also have it posted the day of your podcast release, and then also throughout the following week. But where can people find you or find Blacts Apparel online?
Okay, cool. You can find Blacts Apparel at Blacts, BLACTS.com. Blacts.com is our website. On social media, you can follow us at Blacts Apparel on Instagram, and I believe it's Blacts on Facebook too. So yeah, please follow, because I spend all this time trying to make it all pretty for y'all and checking for grammatical errors. Like, I just want somebody to read it, because honestly, I have a great time just doing the research and having all these aha moments. I'm trying to give people who have already done the work an opportunity to shine, because you it, but some of these really dope Black people don't be getting no love on social media, and their stuff doesn't get circulated but once, and not twice and 3 times and 1,000,000 times. It doesn't go viral the way it should. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely follow Blacts on Instagram and Facebook. I love following Blacts on Instagram. Every time I go on, I feel like it's either some really dope information I've never heard of, or I'm seeing the apparel again, or I'm seeing, you or one of the models posted up in their apparel, and I'm like, okay, man, I'm really enjoying this. And your point around people not getting the shine that they deserve, I found that to be true, right? If you're not willing to sell your soul for this dollar, oftentimes it's so much harder for you to get that shine. If you're not shucking and jiving, you're not going
Mm-hmm.
viral a lot of times. And so, definitely give people their just due. I love the fact, again, of like you're creating that platform for them. As am I, to be quite honest, to
Mm-hmm.
help people really get the exposure that they deserve. And so, we made it, Teddye. I know you
Yeah,
got
we
to go
did.
get your daughter in a second, so I want to respect the honor your time, my brother. But we made it to the end. So, as again, I just want to thank you. I really want to just say Blacts Apparel is something that I look forward to continuing to interact with, both through social media, but also specifically with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I plan on buying a Nina Simone hoodie for my wife. I'm gonna cop some more apparel as Christmas gifts,
Mm-hmm.
because I know a whole lot of people that will get a lot out of this. And I'm looking forward to publishing this episode in the future, because I think that a lot of people that listen to this show will find continued motivation in your story. And again, like you said, it's not that hard. Just get to it. So, any
Mm-hmm.
last words you want to share with folks before we log off?
Know your people, y'all. Just know your people.
That's it. That should have been the tagline for the show. Is know your people. If for season 2, I might change it to know your people.
That's
But
it.
for season 1, it's still each one teach one. We all learn together. Again, Teddye, man, I appreciate you. Everybody have a good one.
Stay Black.
Always stay Black, always, forever. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Third Lap Podcast. This is your host, Mal Davis. Please visit thethirdlappodcast.com for more information about the podcast, about our guests, and also to see our reading list. You can find us at The Third Lap Podcast on LinkedIn and Facebook, at Third Lap on Twitter, and at third_lap_podcast on Instagram. If you know anyone that would be great to be featured on this show, please reach out to our host, Mal Davis. He's always looking for interesting people to learn more about them and to talk about their pathway. Thank you so much again. Have a good one.